should you watch The Classroom of the Elite? As always, getting straight to the point, you should give the show a try, as it's very different than what you will think at first. Within the first minutes of the show, I believe that it will be more of a slice of life show. However, after 8 minutes, you're introduced to some rules that are placed upon the students. The students are appointed points that they can spend on anything within the campus, which has anything you would need or want. The students are all given 100,000 points, which is equivalent to 100,000 yen. Everyone has limited access to the outside world for unknown reasons. This is how we are introduced to the school system, at first in a very slice of life manner. However, after most of the students within the class are out of points and the next month approaches, we are given a more detailed version of the way that you earn points. The school decides how many points a student earns based on the performance. However, they don't get verbal notifications of their wrongdoings, which gives them a false sense of security. After a month, the class that our main protagonist is in has a total of 92 absences, 400 cases of cell phone usage, and/or talking while class was in session. And due to this, the school believes that they are worthless, therefore they get given no points for the next month. This causes commotion, as the students were not informed about this and they simply believed that they would be giving the 100,000 points to each student at the end of each month, regardless of their participation and/or achievements within the assorted time. There's a lot more to the way the school functions. However, before I explain that, I think I should talk about the characters. The story is shown through the eyes of Ayano Koji. He's the main character, and at first he seems like an antisocial person. However, in situations later on within the show, he displays great leadership skills and a lot more. However, due to him being an enigma, I'd rather not spoil what he's capable of. One other thing I'll say is that you don't find out anything about his backstory until later on in the show, making his personality more clear through it. The other characters are very important throughout the show as well, and are given a lot of development. Due to this show being psychological, you have a lot of different sides to them, and they'll function very differently throughout the story. This keeps you interested, as quickly you realize anything could happen. This is how the story really keeps it interesting, as within the setting of the school, you have a lot of people trying to manipulate each other. Going back to the school system, there are rankings within the classrooms, and our classroom is at the bottom. Guess what? Our goal is to be at the top of all the classes. This gets more focused on around the ending parts of the show, which are the last 4 episodes of the first season. Now that I'm talking about the episode, I might as well say that the show has 12 episodes. However, this is mainly due to some things that I've read on the internet. It should have had 16. The reason why I'm saying this is due to some of the characters not getting more development, as they did in the manga. This is something that I found the bigger fans complaining about. This makes the story more focused on the main character, which I don't have a problem with as I haven't read the manga. As always, we're going to talk about the character design, as there isn't a lot of crazy designs due to the show being based in reality, and it's a lot more basic than fantasy shows. The main form of clothing that the cast wears is their school uniform. However, at least there are moments when they change their clothing depending on the narrative. And the school uniform design is probably the best design in the whole show, as I find all the other clothing to be a little bit too simplistic. Next, I'll talk about animation. It's simple, but consistent. For a show with 12 episodes, it's a must for the quality to be consistent. With limited action scenes, the quality, when they do happen, is good. I feel like a show with this form of storytelling doesn't need better animation. However, there's one thing that the show does very well, and that's its shading and color usage. Whilst it's not crazy, it's still very good. It's one of the better aspects of the animation I find anyway, or at least the color setup. Makes it very much seem as if the characters are in the scene that they're placed in. Lastly, I'll talk about the sound of the show. This will mainly focus on music used in the show and sound effects. Talking about the way music is utilized in different situations first, I must say, the way very tense situations are built up using music is well done, and when you're in a more calm situation, music is still using some of the same components as the scenes that have more tension in them. I think this creates a very good balance from one scene to the other, making them flow very nicely. Lastly, I'll talk about the sound effects, and once again, I will be mentioning Fire Force, as I personally believe that Fire Force has the best sound effects of any anime that I've ever watched. In comparison, Fire Force blows it out of the water. However, for a show that doesn't really use many action scenes, that doesn't build up too much tension, and isn't trying to be too dramatic, the show uses the sound effects minimalistically, but very well. However, I still must say that it's very much average. Before I give you my overall rating of Preston Room of the Elite, I'll talk about other shows that I've reviewed first. I'll talk about Overlord. I got a 35.5 out of 40. I'm doing this because I didn't know how I was going to review other shows previously, and also there's this whole subject of the different genres, and because obviously I might enjoy other genres more than others, it's a little bit hard to gauge some of these rankings. That's why sometimes I'll go back and talk about what I rated other shows. As this is a more realistic show, it's very much different to rate than something like Overlord or Shield Hero, which are the two other shows I reviewed. However, I still feel like Overlord would stay in the ranking of 35 to 38, realistically speaking. I think I underplayed how good the show is, as it's one of the must-watches, especially if you like fantasy shows. Again, I am going to keep on making that link where, obviously, depending on the genre, you might like it less or more, but if you're into fantasy shows, you must watch Overlord, as it's one of the better fantasy shows that I've ever seen. Lastly, I'll talk about Shield Hero before I make my final review, and honestly, the 32 out of 40 that I gave it, I think is just about right. It could have been placed lower, honestly, because the second season honestly was pretty bad, especially in comparison to the first one. I don't know, it's still watchable, but the problem is it lacks a lot of the touch that the first season had, and I do still think it's mainly because of the limited amount of episodes that were given. Finally, I'll be talking about the rating for the Classroom of the Elite. The story gets an 8 out of 10 for me, as there are some very interesting points that really kept me engaged, specifically the last 4 episodes, as they had a lot more to them, at least weight, and they kind of gave more of a conclusive end to the story. The characters have a 7 out of 10 from me, as there are some good characters, but there's also a lot of characters that you'll find annoying and almost unwanted in certain scenes and situations. This becomes less of a thing at, again, the last 4 episodes. The action, it's good. It doesn't need to be any better, honestly. 7 out of 10. It's above average, as I've seen a lot of scenes in anime where you can't even see the action and such. It's very much blurry. Just imagine Dragon Ball with their teleportation and not really much of a fight. However, this show has good fighting choreography and keeps it pretty interesting, especially compared to some other shonen shows. I think the main reason why that's the case is because they definitely use some reference from actual martial arts, which makes it a little bit more realistic once again and more fleshed out. The music and the sound gets a 6 out of 10, which is the lowest rating that the show gets. The main reason is, unfortunately, that I don't find the sound effects to be that insane or anything like that. To be fair, it doesn't have to be insane, but I don't find them as interesting. The music is good at times, but unfortunately, it's nothing special. And surprise, surprise, we're going to add another rating as of this episode, and that's going to be the animation. Something that I can't believe we're not talking about when it comes to an anime show. And honestly, the animation is fluent, consistent, and not bad. I've had people complain about my opinion of consistent in the comments, saying that a big fuck off turtle in the second season of Shield Hero wasn't that good. But if you compare it to stuff like 7 Deadly Sins, where the animation is not comprehensive at all, I'll take that fucking huge turtle. You know what I mean? I'll definitely take something I can at least perceive as an actual being, rather than a splodge on my screen. And honestly, one of the good things about the show is how consistent the animation is and how much effort is put into placing the characters in the scene. With that alone, I do think the animation requires a 7 out of 10, and the usage of color just adds to that solidity there. It's definitely a solid 7 out of 10. The overall rating being 35 out of 50. It's a little bit awkward now comparing it to the other shows. However, Overlord and Shield Hero will both rank above this show. While some might disagree with Shield Hero ranking above, I definitely think that the first season of Shield Hero alone blew this show out of the water. I'm probably have favoritism when it comes to fantasy shows. However, it's just something that you might need to, unfortunately, work along with me. As you know how it is when you review shows, there's a little bit of favoritism. And this concludes the review. I hope you enjoyed. This is a little bit longer, mainly because I think I kind of rambled at the end. If you like me rambling, then put it in the comments. If you want me to be a little bit shorter, make sure that the video is maybe six to 8 minutes long. Normally it makes it more packed full of information and kind of gets to the point a little bit quicker. I did make sure that the start was more informative though than later on. It's at the end I'm kind of showing my opinion a little bit more than anything like that. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the show. The next show that's going to be getting reviewed is Railgun. Yes, it is going to be Railgun. It's going to be done by Coffee, not by me. Boo-hoo, I know, everyone loves me. But he'll be reviewing Railgun, and he'll also be reviewing Index at another point. So you know who you are, the person that's been asking in the comments for Railgun. You know, it's coming soon. And sorry for not uploading for a little while. Life is getting in the way. You know how it is.